In Search of the Miraculous by P.D. Ouspensky, Chapter 6. And this is a continuation of Chapter 6, and this is Gurdjieff speaking now. Another question was how to become a Christian. First of all, it's necessary to understand that a Christian is not a man who calls himself a Christian, or whom others call a Christian. A Christian is one who lives in accordance with Christ's precepts. Such as we are, we cannot be Christians. In order to be Christians, we must be able to do. We cannot do. With us, everything happens. Christ says, love your enemies. But how can we love our enemies when we cannot even love our friends? Sometimes it loves, and sometimes it does not love. Such as we are cannot really desire to be Christians, because again, sometimes it desires, and sometimes it does not desire. And one and the same thing cannot be desired for long, because suddenly, instead of desiring to be a Christian, a man remembers a very good but very expensive carpet that he has seen in a shop. And instead of wishing to be a Christian, he begins to think how he can manage to buy this carpet, forgetting all about Christianity. Or if someone else does not believe what a wonderful Christian he is, he would be ready to eat him alive or roast him on hot coals. In order to be a good Christian, one must be. To be means to be master of oneself. If a man is not his own master, he has nothing and can have nothing, and he cannot be a Christian. He is simply a machine, an automaton. A machine cannot be a Christian. Think for yourselves. Is it possible for a motor car or a typewriter or a gramophone to be a Christian? They are simply things which are controlled by chance. They are not responsible. They are machines. To be a Christian means to be responsible. Responsibility comes later, when a man even partially ceases to be a machine and begins, in fact, and not only in words, to desire to be a Christian. What is the relation of the teaching you are expounding to Christianity as we know it? Someone asked who was present. I do not know what you know about Christianity, answered G, emphasizing the word. It would be necessary to talk a great deal and to talk a long time in order to make clear what you understand by this term. But for the benefit of those who already know, I will say that, if you like, this is esoteric Christianity. We will talk in due course about the meaning of these words. At present, we will continue to discuss our questions. Of the desires expressed, the one which is most right is the desire to be master of oneself, because without this, nothing else is possible. And in comparison with this desire, all other desires are simply childish dreams, desires of which a man could make no use, even if they were granted to him. It was said, for instance, that somebody wanted to help people. In order to be able to help people, one must first learn to help oneself. A great number of people become absorbed in thoughts and feelings about helping others, simply out of laziness. They are too lazy to work on themselves, and at the same time it's very pleasant for them to think that they are able to help others. This is being false and insincere with oneself. If a man looks at himself as he really is, he will not begin to think of helping others. He will be ashamed to think about it. Love of mankind, altruism, are all very fine words, but they only have meaning when man is able of his own choice and of his own decision to love and not to love, to be an altruist or an egoist. Then his choice has value. But if there is no choice at all, he cannot be different. If he is only such as chance has made, or making him an altruist today, an egoist tomorrow, again an altruist the day after tomorrow, then there is no value in it whatever. In other words, to help others, one must first learn to be an egoist, a conscious egoist. Only a conscious egoist can help people. Such as we are, we can do nothing. A man decides to be an egoist, but gives away his last shirt instead. He decides to give away his last shirt, but instead he strips off his last shirt. Instead he strips of his last shirt the man to whom he meant to give his own. Or he decides to give away his own shirt, but gives away someone else's and is offended if somebody refuses to give him his shirt so that he may give it to another. This is what happens most often, and so it goes on. And above all, in order to do what is difficult, one must first learn to do what is easy. One cannot begin with the most difficult. There was a question about war, how to stop wars. Wars cannot be stopped. War is the result of the slavery in which men live. Strictly speaking, men are not to blame for war. War due to cosmic forces. No, war is due to cosmic forces, to planetary influences. But in men, there is no resistance whatever against these influences, and there cannot be any, because men are slaves. If they were men and were capable of doing, they would be able to resist these influences and refrain from killing one another. But surely those who realize this can do something, said the man who had asked the question about war. If a sufficient number of men come to a definite conclusion that there should be no war, could they not influence others? Those who dislike war have been trying to do so almost since the creation of the world, said G. And yet there has never been such a war as the present. Wars are not decreasing, they are increasing, and war cannot be stopped by ordinary means. All these theories about universal peace, about peace conferences and so on, are again simply laziness and hypocrisy. Men do not want to think about themselves, they don't want to work on themselves, but they think of how to make other people do what they want. If a sufficient number of people who wanted to stop war really did gather together, they would first of all begin by making war upon those who disagreed with them. And it is still more certain that they would make war on people who also want to stop wars, but in another way. And so they would fight. Men are what they are, and they cannot be different. War has many causes that are unknown to us. Some causes are in men themselves, others are outside them. One must begin with the causes that are in the man himself. How can he be independent of the external influences of great cosmic forces when he is the slave of everything that surrounds him? He is controlled by everything around him. If he becomes free from things, he may then become free from planetary influences. Freedom, liberation, this must be the aim of man, to become free, to be liberated from slavery. This is what a man ought to strive for when he becomes even a little conscious of his position. There is nothing else for him, and nothing else is possible so long as he remains a slave, both inwardly and outwardly. But he cannot cease to be a slave outwardly while he remains a slave inwardly. Therefore, in order to become free, man must gain inner freedom.